In a dramatic and unprecedented move, a majority of Senate Democrats voted on Wednesday to block U.S. weapons sales to Israel. That is a stunning sign of growing divisions within the Democratic Party over the war in Gaza. This was Wednesday night, by the way. Though both resolutions introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders ultimately failed, one targeting the sale of bombs and munition kits, the other tens of thousands of assault rifles. The symbolic significance of this move was historic and clear to me. It marked the first time ever that most Senate Democrats opposed arms sales to America's closest ally in the United States. Excuse me, in the Middle East. Again, Freudian. That is, of course, is Israel. Bernie Sanders called the vote a sign that, quote, the tide is turning. And he's right. The vote also comes as a new Gallup poll shows just 8% of Democrats support Israel's ongoing military campaign in Gaza, compared to 71% of Republicans. Even the moderate Democrats who have long supported Israel have shifted course. I'm talking about people like Dick Durbin, people like Patty Murray. Those are people who looked at the same resolution back in April and said yes, or said no, or now saying yes. They voted for the Sanders measure this time. In all, 25 Democrats backed one or both of Sanders' resolutions. That includes Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, Raphael Warnock, and Tim Kaine. But 17 Democrats, just to be clear, joined Republicans in voting them down. Now, one name to think about, since we're talking about New Jersey, is Senator Cory Booker, who argued that the measures would not end the war and they would not improve humanitarian aid. I want to put his reasons on the table just to make sure that I'm not being unfair in my characterization of Cory. But he still voted the wrong way. There's no justification for that. I'm just explaining his explanation. Anyway, the votes come amid intensifying scrutiny over mass starvation in Gaza. Again, I don't know, acting like this stuff is new. The Israeli military imposed a near total blockade in March and only partially reopened the crossings in April. The Palestinian Health Ministry says that over 154 people, a number that includes 89 children, have died of starvation or have died of malnutrition, while the United Nations says that more than 20,000 children have been treated for acute malnutrition. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, shocker, denies that Israel is causing a famine. But this is the tell here. President Donald Trump seems to distance himself from Netanyahu's claim. On Monday, Trump said, while Senate Democrats, let's see here, do I have his quote? I don't have the Trump quote, but anyway, he knows it's bullshit too, is the point. While Senate Republicans unanimously opposed Sanders' measures, cracks are emerging among conservatives in the House. Representatives Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene have both voiced opposition to continued U.S. military aid to Israel, with Greene recently calling the crisis a genocide. Over 60,000 Palestinians have been called since the war began, following Hamas's October 7th attack, which left 1,200 Israelis dead and 250 having been taken hostage. The Palestinian casualty figures come from the Gaza Health Ministry, which operates under Hamas control and cannot be independently verified. I want to add, though, that those numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry historically have always been accurate, and they've always corresponded with international numbers, UN numbers, etc. As the public opinion shifts, observers say the Wednesday vote could mark the beginning of a political realignment around the U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. Oof. I don't want to be overly optimistic. I don't want to overstate what has just happened. But there's definitely a shift. It's important to say that there's definitely a shift. There was a moment as recently as 10 years ago, maybe even 5, but certainly 10, where this bill wouldn't have gotten off the ground, where Bernie Sanders wouldn't even be a part of it. And if he were and it did, it would maybe 5 senators on board, maybe 2, maybe none. But we finally reached a place where even Israel is being held somewhat accountable. Accountable is not the right word. Where they're at least, the world's at least paying attention or acknowledging how awful Israel is treating the people of Gaza. That's the baseline. Some people don't care. Some people will sell out the Palestinian people. Some people will give in to super PAC money. Some people give in to political pressure. Some people are unprincipled. Some people just have a different point of view and just think Israel's right. There's all those options on the table. All those options are on the table. All of them. There was no table 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there was no table. So this is an exciting moment. This is an exciting site of opportunity to generate more. But I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that the United States is taking a principled position. This doesn't mean that the U.S. House or Senate or the Congress more or collectively has the right stance on Israel-Palestine. What it does mean is that they are beginning to turn around. The U.S. public has already turned around. The global community has already turned around. We're getting somewhere, and we're getting there fast. So in 5 years, I think this will be a non-issue. Not Israel-Palestine, but the idea of getting people on board for this kind of stuff.